Hello and bienvenue. I'm your host Anaïs, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Her Career, Her Coach, the podcast dedicated to empowering women to build a career they are truly passionate about. I am so excited to introduce you all, dear listeners, to today's guest, Irina, whom I met earlier this year. Irina's speech was an insightful reflection upon her career. Spoiler alert, she had many lives, but I'll let her unpack that with us. And she obviously also talked about how she navigated motherhood whilst balancing her professional life. So I can't wait to hear your story, Irina. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're gonna have a blast. So let's start with starters. Can you share more about yourself?
Of course, happy to. So as you were saying, my name's Irina. I'm currently a product designer. I work for Zero Gravity, which is a tech startup, social mobility startup here in the UK. I've had various design roles, purely UX focused, UI focused, and I actually started my career as a web developer. And throughout the years before the pandemic, I also balanced my full-time job with a little volunteering position on the weekends. I was also a special constable for the Metropolitan Police. So I guess this is what you're referring to when you're saying that I've had many lives. It feels like, for sure.
Absolutely. I remember some of the stories that you told in that talk. And obviously, I'm sure we'll have a chance to unpack a little bit more, some of the stories around some of the roles that you've had. The first question that comes to mind, just hearing you now, what is it that you love the most about what you're doing right now?
What I'm doing right now, I feel like it's impactful. I feel like my job is truly helping create change for future generations, for young adults in the UK. I feel like I don't have just a design role where I work on some product that is not really making any deeply meaningful impact to anyone's lives. I truly believe that our product is here to stay and it's here to create a big wave of change for so many people. And this is what motivates me every day, just knowing that this product that we're putting so much work in is shaping up people from when they're about 16 years old into university and careers.
This is exactly why I've asked you at the end of that evening, would you like to share your career story? Because I feel like a lot of people who benefit from hearing it. Just hearing you now, I obviously don't necessarily have the full detail as to what it does involve, but even if I had no idea about what your role is about, what your company is about, which obviously I do now, I just hear and sense the passion and the purpose. And I think this is very, very exciting. And it's something that I just want to dive a little bit more, if that's okay with you. Have you always felt this way with your career?
No, definitely have not felt this way always. I tried to, and I've only realized recently, I think I realized when I started this role, which is just a little over a year ago, that this is what I've sort of been looking for, this kind of job, this kind of company, this kind of product. Getting to where I am now has made me realize retrospectively that all the roles I've had so far, I was searching for something in my everyday job and I wasn't really finding it. And I never really stopped to ask myself why. I was going from one design role to another, thinking that, okay, I want to go for the other job. I want to go for this new job because it sounds exciting. But what was actually exciting? I never really stopped to think what did exciting mean to me? Was it just because the company had a good name in its industry? Was it because it was a big company or because it was a startup and maybe I had a chance of kind of leading a team and growing a team? I tried. I looked for so many roles and I tried and I applied and I accepted job offers thinking that it was going to be so good. And I don't know, maybe a few months or a year into the role, I was just finding myself not motivated to go to work, just bored of what I was doing, not really excited about working on the product anymore. I guess for the majority of my roles, it just happened so easily and so quickly that I got to that point where I lost my excitement. And I guess I never really stopped to think about why, never really stopped to wonder. I just thought this is what happens, a year has passed and you've worked on a product for a year and this is natural to happen. And, either you continue in the same role and you kind of put up with it, or you make a change and you change your job and you go apply for roles and that's it. You've changed again and now it's exciting again. But then after a year, it goes back to boring again. So yeah, definitely haven't felt like I feel now in my previous roles because again, now I've been here for a little over a year and it literally just surprised me. I'm like, how is it my 1 year anniversary already? And oh my God, I can't wait to like do all of these things that I'm about to do and to work on this feature. And there's this project going on and it's gonna be so cool and all that kind of stuff. Like I still feel that excitement and I have a feeling that it's not really gonna go away anytime soon. So yeah.
I am so, so glad that you've shared. I mean, essentially, it was your truth. I was not expecting anything in particular, but it's something that I do talk a lot with my clients, the
Mm,
whole I just never either took the time or had a chance to just stop and ask myself why, as in what's my purpose, what is not working for me at the moment, or what it
mm,
is. And I'm so glad to hear that you actually are now in a position where you know this is exactly where you're meant to be. You see your future there, you're thriving. I mean, first of all, congratulations to you. That's exciting.
thank you.
The question I have then for you is what happened for you to land here? Because I don't necessarily believe in pure luck. I feel like you were saying, you were on this quest. You knew that something had to change. So I know it's a big loaded question, but I'm just curious to ask. How did you think you ended up where you are today, living in alignment with what your purpose is?
Yeah, I know you say you don't want to believe in pure luck, and somehow I feel like that would be my answer because I was in my previous role. I started feeling again like I wasn't excited. Well, not just that, but I had come back from maternity leave after like 5 months away. And in that previous role, I had been their first and only designer when I started with them. I set up all the designs and all the projects and all the features and stuff. I set Figma up from the ground, right, from scratch. Everything was clean, everything was tidy, things were done the way I like them. Everything was in place and labeled nicely and all that kind of stuff. And I basically came back from maternity leave, funnily enough, the day my daughter turned 4 months old. And I was already, of course, sleep deprived and under stress and just definitely not feeling like myself and not in a
Mm,
good place. When you have a 4 month old baby, you're not really you're not really yourself. And that probably didn't help with the fact that the designer who had been a freelancer there to cover for my maternity leave had kind of transformed a lot of Figma like places, like pages and projects and stuff in a bit of mumbo jumbo. I mean, not even that, but I just felt lost. I went
mm,
back and I looked at all of the work I had done months before, and I didn't recognize a lot of things, and every little part of me just felt anger. I don't even know if that's normal. I don't know if I should have reacted that way. I don't know if I would still react the same way if that would happen to me today, when my daughter is like a year and a half old. Basically, I gave up. I felt, that moment when you feel like you want to take everything in front of you, like all the papers on your desk, and like throw it
mm,
up in the air and like,
yeah.
screw this, I'm out of here.
Mm,
That was when I kind of mentally completely checked out from that job. I didn't feel like I want to go back in there and redo all of the work I had done and bring it all back and clean up and tidy up everything. And I just cannot work in like really messy environments, basically. So when I was asked to work on something new or a new feature and stuff like that, I was just, where do I even put it? I don't know where everything is anymore, and I don't
Mm,
know where it fits anymore because nothing makes sense to me anymore. So
mm,
basically, that's what actually happened that made me completely mentally check out from that job. And that made me just set myself as available on LinkedIn, I believe. And I had a recruiter reach out to me with this position at Zero Gravity. A week later, I was interviewing with them, and a week later, I had my offer and I was resigning from my previous role. So if you can't
love
call it
it.
luck, then I don't know what you can call it. But
No,
on
it's fate.
the other hand,
I mean, a
yeah,
mix of things, but yes.
exactly. I would love to believe that it's fate because, on the other hand, once I got to, work with these people, one amazing thing that I found out was basically that their interviewing mantra is if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. So
Mm,
this is how they hire. If they don't feel like that candidate in front of them, it's hell yeah, we want them to join us, then it's a no. Like they won't hire if they're kind of on the fence about it, right?
mm,
So that gave me quite a confidence boost, because they felt about me as if I was a really talented designer, exactly what they were looking for. They said they've gone through so many designer interviews, one of them kind of funnier than the other. They had their whole journey with hiring, and then I got to them and they felt like a hell yeah about me. And I just really needed that. It sounds silly, you shouldn't be looking for like validation outside. You should be confident in yourself. And maybe I wasn't, back then. And for me, that was like such a confidence boost that I just believe now because of that I'm a better designer or better at my job that I was seeing myself. They saw something in me that maybe I wasn't seeing. So that was another nice way that this whole kind of move and job change happened. The fact that they felt that way about me. So yeah, maybe it was
um,
fate.
I mean, yes, I strongly believe that everything happens for a reason, but at the same time, you also put yourself, available on LinkedIn. Like, things happen. You've pushed out to the universe that you needed to be
Yeah,
out and you needed something. So, yes, I mean,
yeah.
thank you so much. And I know we sort of deviated, but I just love to unpack this story with you and how you ended up where you are today. I think some of the things that you've mentioned might come up again, and that's absolutely fine. I'll go back, if I may put it this way, to the standard questions I need to ask. And obviously, it's all about your career achievements for starters. I'd love to hear what would you say have been your top three?
Career-wise, I feel like finally be able to say at 30, if you don't mind me revealing my age,
It's
like
all good.
finally I'm 30 and I feel like I'm happy with where I am. And I'll take it as an achievement. Surely you can take it as, oh, wait, you only got to that place when you were 30? Like that's a bit late. I don't think that would ever be considered late, right? So I'll take it as an achievement. The fact that I've had this journey with all of its ups and downs and all the things I've tried and all the people I've, worked with, all the companies I've worked for, it all brought me to this place. And I see it as a good thing.
Mhm. Love it.
Definitely a highlight of my 20s has been working for the Met because that was a job I was doing when I was, in those kind of design roles where I wasn't feeling like I was having any meaningful impact, making any positive change for anyone. All I was doing is being in an office 9 to 5, working on some websites or apps for random companies and clients, especially when I was agency side. They were even clients who maybe weren't aligning with my own personal like moral values, right? But you still have to work for them because you work for an agency and the
Hmm.
agency signing them up as a client. You can't say no to that stuff, right? So it was all of this work that I was doing just made me feel like it wasn't truly meaningful. Hence why I joined the police. And for 3.5 years, for as long as I did that, I felt like that was the only good thing I was doing. I know it's obviously heavily criticized and all that kind of stuff, right? But for me, what that was an opportunity for me to help, to really dedicate myself to helping some people, to, being there for them when potentially they're a victim of all sorts of crimes, and just
Mm.
show some empathy and try to support them and try to take a good statement, which hopefully helps, obviously, with like suspects and investigations and stuff. And even doing something as, I'll call it simple, but it's definitely not the right word, but participating in events when you're doing security for things like tripping the collar or the pride parades. Everyone is in such a good mood. Everyone's cheerful and happy. And yes, of course, you're there to make sure that everything stays that way and nothing goes wrong, right? But it's just the fact that I was dedicating myself to an event and to like keeping things peaceful and to making sure people can enjoy themselves safely, all that kind of stuff. That just made me feel good. And my full-time jobs weren't making me feel any of that.
I remember as well when you talked about it in the event. And for anyone who's listening in who feel potentially stuck or misaligned with where they are right now, it doesn't mean that you have to find what's the right next step. You can actually explore on the side like you did and
Yeah.
find a meaningful path that could work for you and that could enable you to see what are the things that makes you, that keeps you alive, that sparks something in you, whatever that is. I'm going to do a big shortcut here. But when I'm hearing what you just said here and the work that you did with the Met Police and the fact that, you were there to emotionally support the people and just going through your zero gravity process where the motto is hell yes or hell no, I feel like you've managed to connect with people who truly care about making an impact on people's life. Nothing related with what the police does, but there is this emotional caring layer that I've just found in both those words that you've just shared with us, and I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's working with people who really care. That's a great way of putting it. It
Mm.
was happening like this at the police as well. Obviously, I got to almost every shift I was working with someone new. So I got to meet and talk to a lot of officers, and I was asking them obviously why you're doing this, how come they were all, or let's say vast majority of the people I was working with, the officers were paid, right? So they're into that role because they chose it a while ago, a long time ago, I don't know. But some of them were doing it out of pleasure, some of them were doing it because, I don't know, maybe they didn't have other options. But what I enjoyed most was the fact that they were always asking me as well, why are you doing this? As
Mm.
in, why are you doing this for free? Because it's basically doing it for free. Yes, you get a
Yeah.
bit of, food, drinks allowance for the shift you're working in. Yeah, you get your Oyster like travel card for London paid. It wasn't like a salary. It's pennies compared to, the design or the development jobs and stuff. So I wasn't doing it for the money. And I was telling them that, of course, you don't do that for the money. You would never as a volunteer because there is no money in it. I
Mm.
do it because I am really passionate about this and I do it because I want to help. And they were just finding it a bit funny. Not funny, but they were like, oh, okay. So so yeah, I definitely felt what it's like to work with people who truly care. Some people really, truly cared, and we really resonated. And some people were indeed tired of the job because it
Mm.
is very consuming. But same at Zero Gravity now. Everyone here, I feel like they truly care and they dedicate themselves to growing the business and improving the business and the product and ensuring, its success for the years to come. And you just see that in the way they are and their values and how we all kind of connect. And yeah, in every day you just see it around you, which is really nice.
Love it. This is why I don't drink coffee. Any final achievement that you want to share with us before we look at your challenges?
I don't think there's like many other like major achievements.
Those were majors, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, as in I'm happy to just leave it with those two.
All right, that sounds like a plan. Let's have a look at some of your career challenges. What would you say have been the most impactful one?
Mm, yeah, obviously because we've just spoken about it a lot, but the journey I've been on, it's been a challenge because obviously throughout the years, just never really feeling like you're finding your place and never really feeling like
Mm,
you're doing something good makes you maybe lose some sleep every now and then, adds to the stress. Of course, this is if if you really want to get to a specific place and you just feel like you don't really know how to, or I guess just yeah, the entire journey is been a bit of a challenge.
mm.
But again, it landed me in a good place, so it's not like I'm upset about it now. It
Yeah,
had to happen. It had to happen.
yeah.
For example, there's still challenges, there's still lessons that I'm kind of learning. There's still things I'm going through, career-wise or professionally wise. So I guess I'm still learning to speak confidently in front of people. Probably sounds funny because, as a designer, you're supposed to present your designs, and I should have had plenty of experience with this so far. And I have. I've had moments where I've made presentations, I've presented designs, all that kind of stuff. But I still feel like I'm not the most confident person in the world.
Mm,
And I feel like I shut down a little bit when all the attention is on me, or like I struggle sometimes maybe on how to convey my ideas and really get my point across without over explaining and like losing the room. So communication wise, potentially, that's something I'm still working on. And also just like being myself in front of people. I've had plenty of moments until now. Probably this has happened actually, like reflecting on it, has happened since I was a child or maybe in school or high school. Always felt like I want to please other people. I can't fully be 100% myself because maybe they'll think I'm silly, or, you know, I I've had trouble in the past and I'm trying to, not do it anymore, which is being afraid to fail, right? I shouldn't be
yeah,
afraid to fail. I should be able to, if I've made any mistakes, like admit to them and just know that people are not gonna hold it over your head. And even though everyone's an adult around you, like everyone's still learning, everyone's still on a path to potentially discovering themselves, or learning how to communicate or learning how to present themselves. All these things, all these skills, to me, it feels like other people around me have them and they do them so well. And I know that's probably not the case. Not everyone has got their shit together, and I'm the only one who hasn't. But yeah, I just never really felt like I can be vulnerable, and that's something I want to do more and more, which would technically allow me to be myself. And I think that's really important because you can't go through every day constantly trying to be a people pleaser and constantly trying to impress or never really letting yourself be natural?
yeah. I mean, so many things to unpack from what you shared. I call it the good student syndrome. And I feel like I'm putting myself in that category, definitely as, I don't know if it's as woman or just, I don't know, something relating to how school is set up in that side of the globe. The whole, like, focusing on making sure that you're doing the good things and you're pleasing as many people as possible can get you as far as you can without actually finding the true part of yourself, if I'm making any sense, right?
Yeah.
Because essentially, and again, this is something that I talk a lot pretty much on a daily basis, which is how far do I want to take this, knowing purposefully that it just doesn't serve me, or it can serve me as far as I'm stretching away from who I'm truly am, right? And I love what you said at the end, which is this is why I'm actually working on and, exposing myself and working on being vulnerable, right? Because this is just not easy. I'm sure you probably know this one. I'm reading it again, Dare to Lead by Brené Brown,
Mm-hmm.
where she's all talking about this leadership trait, which is all about rambling
Yeah.
with vulnerability. And I think this is pretty much what we're talking a little bit about here. And I love the fact that the way I see it is it could either be something that you feel like you're just stuck with and that's it, or you could see it on, right, this is the thing that I feel I need to improve on, I need to work on, and those are the things that I'm going to put in place, such as delivering a talk, sharing about my career journey in front of strangers back in, I think it was January 2023, and us having this conversation together today, right?
Yeah.
So anyone out there who resonate with what Irina shared, just have to think about what's the one next thing that feels a stretch out of your comfort zone, out of your standard pattern, but that you know deep down, this is where you need to go to truly reconnect with who you're meant to be fully. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you wrote the topic.
Yeah, and I guess one of the reasons why I feel like I haven't been able to make major changes or improvements from those points of view to myself is also because I didn't know resources exist. It sounds silly. I'm
No,
sure
yeah, it's not.
podcasts have been around for so long now, and all of these, self-help and empowerment and leadership and coaching. I just never really looked into it. I never discovered them until recently. So if anything, I guess one piece of advice I would have is just try to look for these resources. There's a mountain of things out there that can help you from every point of view.
Mm,
It's just, spend a bit of time and look for it. And yeah.
I love it. And I think this is sort of moving on to the final part of the podcast, which is all about your recommendations. Before we go there, is there any other challenge that you want to share with us?
Again, looking back at the journey I've had so far, a challenge I've had throughout the years was coming from not really stopping and thinking. So as we were saying, I was going from role to role, never really stopping to understand why I feel the need to make a change so often, right? So I think if I had allowed myself maybe for a weekend, maybe throughout multiple like weeks and months to just stop and reflect on myself and what I actually need, what I'm looking for, I think I would have maybe gotten to a better place sooner. Obviously, we can't know that, but
Mm,
just that's one of the challenges I feel like I've had in the past is evaluating the options I have, all the potential outcomes. I never stopped to make pros and cons. I feel like with anything in my life, to be honest. I'm just that kind of person who will go for something and then realize what's happened and then think maybe I could have gone for the other option. So maybe
mm.
that's like a lesson to be learned in my present and in my future situations where I'm at a crossroads, knowing that about myself now, knowing that I'm a bit more impulsive, that maybe I should pace myself.
Very interesting. I think you're spot on. It's about making sure that you are actually still staying true to who you are, right? Like if you're someone who is a doer, I mean, look at you, right? You're volunteering, as a special constable, meanwhile working full time. So it doesn't seem like you're the one person that would definitely enjoy doing nothing for an entire weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
There we go. So you're one of those that I like to call the side hustler, but in a good way, right? You just one of those people, and when I'm saying that, I'm actually including myself in that bucket. I feel like we just don't know how not to do one thing at the same time and always love to be, challenged and kept busy and doing things, right? So at the same time, if you know this is how you function best and how you work, if you're an impulsive person, for example, listening to this episode and thinking, oh yeah, 100%, I've gone into walls before and I should have probably think twice before going into that wall. Well, I challenge that in the sense that, yes, please, if you can avoid hitting a wall, please do. But if this is how you work, just make sure you don't hold yourself back, because whatever it is that you need to do, either is thinking or either is doing, make sure that you're not doing this too much the same way once again and again and again, if that makes sense. So if, for
Yeah.
example, you the type of person who likes to reflect and overthink things before taking any action, make sure you don't get stuck on that overthinking process either. And if you're someone who just goes after the one thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you've realized that you've gone through that for a couple of times, but you still haven't gone to where you need to be, then have a think about, should I actually do things differently and maybe think proactively this time around, even though it's not something I'm comfortable with, it's not my default mechanism.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
made sense to me and it sounded so well put. Yeah.
Essentially, I was just saying, stay true to who you are, do what works best for you. But if you keep doing this thing and it doesn't work, then try to go on the other side. Even though it's
Yeah.
not as easy as you're a doer, you're a thinker, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Self-reflect, understand who you are, understand the type of person you are, and see if maybe one time you can do things slightly differently.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. As we are coming to an end together, unfortunately, these things just times fly. I'd love to hear from you. You've already shared a lot of priceless tips along the way. I think the one that I'll keep in mind from what you said is definitely about essentially, listening to your instinct. So if you're going back from mat leave and nothing is working out for you, just put an open on LinkedIn and see where it takes you, right? But yeah, any recommendations that you'd like to share for anyone out there who is just thinking, this is just not working for me, this career. I don't know how to go on next to where I need to be. You obviously talked about resources, but anything else that you'd like to share?
Exactly. Resources wise, I love this phrase, which I encounter most often in relation to motherhood, which is find your village because it takes a
Yes.
village. But
Yes.
just find your village, find communities of like-minded people, whether it's women of specific ages or specific jobs. Network with these people, maybe invite them for coffee chats and ask them for advice because no one's going through anything. Like you don't have to go through anything alone. And I don't think you're going through such a unique situation that
Mm,
no one out there has ever gone through. Especially, obviously, especially if we're talking about something as changing jobs, obviously not like super personal stuff, right? But when it comes to changing jobs, there's so many people who've gone through career changes, role level changes from maybe from a sort of simple or like mid-level senior position all of a sudden into leadership or management, and maybe they were intimidated by this huge change. I think there's a lot of people out there who would be willing to help, and this is something that I wish I could go back and tell myself all those years
mm,
throughout my 20s that I'm not the only person going through this. There have been people who've gone through this, and maybe just a little piece of advice from them would have helped steer me in a different direction, maybe a better direction, or just learning from other people's experiences. I definitely felt alone or I definitely felt isolated.
mm,
Obviously, my family or close friends, they don't have the same jobs, they don't have the same interests. So they weren't able to help me with very like tailored advice, right? I wish I would have felt more confident in reaching out to other people. And I just think it would have helped, basically, looking back at it now. But also, maybe something that can really help you make progress is trying to dedicate a part of your time, potentially even making it a habit, like a weekly thing or like a daily 5-minute thing or whatever it is that works for you to work on improving yourself and your skills. So, I don't know, read books about your career interests or choices, or if you're going through any big, strong feelings like feeling lost, etc. I'm sure there's books that can help you navigate those feelings and get you back into a good place. There's podcasts, there's career advancement courses, there's networking meetups, events, and stuff like that. I feel like if I would have potentially done more on this, maybe I would have been a step further than where I am now. I still don't feel like, obviously, it's too late. It's never too late, right?
mhm. Agreed.
It's just that I wish I had that kind of self-determination to do more of this stuff and to just improve myself and my skills and my whole professional career.
Anyone listening in, this is your cue to prioritize yourself, as in call out for help. Like you were saying, I don't think we talk about this enough. As part of the work that I do, I'm always available for 20 to 25 minutes free career strategy session. And the one thing that I always get as a feedback is it is so nice to actually talk to someone about the current reflections I'm going through. Like I've just felt like in a loop in my own head for so long, right? Just don't underestimate the power there is in just reaching out, like you were saying, to just brainstorm out ideas, either people that you work with, who knows you, or people who don't actually. Whatever it is, I think you're right. It's one of those that it's important, but it's not urgent to work on yourself. So it tends to be at the back of the list. And actually, I'm glad that you share that with us, because I'd encourage anyone to put it back on first on the list.
Yeah.
Love it. As part of the tradition, I'd love to ask you one word summarizing the conversation we just had together today.
I think my word to summarize would be choices.
Ooh, yes. I love it. Yes. Choices it is.
Choices. Whether some of them are really good, whether some of them are bad, they're all there to teach you a lesson. And I'm sure they're all there to get you into the place where you were always meant to end up one day. So just enjoy the journey whilst you make all those choices when you feel, maybe when you feel even lost or confused or confident. Just enjoy the journey.
Yay! Here's to choices. Here's to enjoying the journey. Thank you so much, Irina,
Here's
for
the
sharing your
choices.
story.
Thank you so much as well for having me.
If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with anyone you believe would benefit from hearing it. Because as you know, life is too short to feel unfulfilled at work.